Hi, I'm Shannon Wyman, Scientific Communications Manager at Keystone Symposia, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Bruno Andrade, co-organizer of the upcoming eSymposia virtual meeting on tuberculosis, science aimed at ending the epidemic. Dr. Andrade is an associate investigator at the Fiocruz Foundation in Bahia, Brazil, and also was just appointed chief editor of the New Frontiers in Tropical Diseases Journal, which launches on December 7th. Thank you for joining me today, Dr. Andrade.
Thank you very much, Shannon.
Sure. So first, can you tell us what was your vision in organizing this meeting and how does it bring new perspectives to the research landscape of the field?
Well, this was a very interesting opportunity. First, it was great to meet all the other co-organizers in Brazil, Rodrigo and Anne and Dave, and they're all great. But we tried to do something different with this meeting and bring and trying to integrate epidemiology studies that are very strong in Brazil and South America with the advances in the molecular field, but in a way that we were looking to integrate these views, trying to understand better the complexity of tuberculosis and how to use information on complexity to improve our understanding about the determinants of the disease. So that's pretty much what the meeting is really about. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And can you expand a little bit more on how those molecular insights or even public health insights do lead to better treatment, more effective treatment, and hopefully ending the epidemic?
Yeah, so the advances in the technology now, Shannon, allowed us to perform very complicated statistical approaches and modeling to define better the determinants. What does that mean? So we can now track at the cellular level, right, at the disease site, using non-human primates from the really translational science field, and we can define these pathways and how they work and how can we edit or manipulate these pathways pharmacologically. And a lot of these abstracts will be presented by junior investigators in our meeting. So then using that combined with the differences in populations in different areas around the world will give us a better perspective on how to actually find specific targets that are more reliable. What I mean is that we have increased odds of getting successful treatments. So we have, for example, we have studies in India and in Brazil and in South Africa that will be presented there. These studies are showing how complicated and how complex the disease is in terms of interhost variability and disease presentations. And then we overlay that with the complexity and the variability of the bugs, from the microbial point of view. And now by integrating all of this in a major analytical approach, we can reveal associations that otherwise will be missed when we analyze each of these fields in a separate way. And how do I think that this will help public health? So we can define better now if a treatment will be better in different parts of the world or in a specific subset of patients. I think the most important advance that I can surely highlight is that we are understanding better the disease endotypes now, like really characterizing tuberculosis in every detail, in molecular detail that we can. And now when we put this and we overlay that with diabetes, other comorbidities and age and sex, and now we can reveal aspects of the disease that were pretty much ignored in the last decades. So it's a very exciting moment in TB that we are literally uncovering new types of tuberculosis and how the disease is revealing to us to be far more complicated than we ever imagined. But at the same time, we have the tools to understand it better and to characterize better, and then identify paths that can be targets as therapies and vaccines So, and this is all compiled into our meeting that we will have in a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Wow, that's so interesting because yes, it's a disease that's been around for a long time, but to be able to uncover new ways of understanding it is very exciting. So what new research directions do you most look forward to hearing about at the meeting?
So I was really excited with the several talks. So they're all very exciting. There are talks that describe new cellular populations that were ignored in TB, and now they're back, like eosinophils are there, and that brings a different aspect of the disease that we did not know, or we were not working on that. We have identification of new drugs. There were identified using artificial intelligence and other experimental systems that together now can increase efficacy of treatment of multi-drug resistant cases, for example. So we have advances in characterizing the disease, phenotypes and immune pathology, but also identification of new drug candidates, and also understanding how antibiotics and new drugs will work in the context of TB at the molecular level. I think those things, for me, are the most exciting advances that we will be discussing soon. Yeah.
Great. Can you tell us a little bit more about the new technologies and scientific advances that are enabling this new understanding and new approaches, and what are the most promising strategies then for overcoming this TB epidemic we're in?
So I think the most important advance that we are facing now is the artificial intelligence related tools. So we are talking about machine learning and multi-omic analysis, merging different layers of data. We are talking about geolocalization, clinical, epidemiological factors. And when we combine everything in a single platform, we can reveal different things. I think so the advance of the technology, the technologies that are advanced the most now are making possible to understand nuances, just as I mentioned before, about the disease that were not there, because so I think the word that defines the new, like where are we going now in TB is integration of data and accepting complexity and digesting complexity better. So I think by doing that, now I can come up with new ideas and strategies that I believe will help the field. So I think this is the most relevant advance that we have. We are now able to digest, accept complexity. Otherwise, several decades ago, the science was driven by simplicity, right? That will come up with one molecule that will dictate the outcomes, and that would explain everything. And with the advance in technology and the way that we visualize data, just turning things upside down. So now it's more important to accept how complicated the biological systems are, and trying to integrate that to have this overall view and more detailed view with a lot of granularity about what's going on. And I think this shift will help us to understand better the disease and come up with better strategies on how to target the disease.
Yeah, I suppose that could be one reason why we are still struggling to overcome it, because we haven't been able to look at all of these factors that come into play.
Exactly.
Speaking of, one of the new challenges and complexities that has arisen in the last year is the COVID pandemic. How has COVID impacted the field from the patient perspective as well as the public health perspective? And how's the research community addressing the combined risks of COVID and TB?
Yeah, this is a really important point. So, question. COVID caused a tremendous impact in everything, including in the TB field. I work, Shannon, with sites, clinical sites in India, in China, in South Africa, in Brazil. So I feel comfortable to talk about the impact on COVID, on TB clinical research, at least with these patients. And all the activities were pretty much paralyzed in many of these the centers. So we had to stop recruiting patients. Of course, we kept the care, the TB care, but not in the context of research. And so now, so for a while, the field was really scared with the effect of COVID because affected our capacity to diagnose patients in real time. They were not going to the clinics. The clinics were pretty much not functional. And so I think the impact were, my hypothesis is that in the years to come, we will feel this impact more. We will see a lot of new cases coming up because they were missed during 2020. So I think this was an important impact. So, but then at the same time, the research community was really focused in trying to understand this impact and how to overcome this. So TB research has like a lot of advantages in the context of COVID. What does it mean? So we have a pipelines to develop vaccines that were actually pretty much used by many groups to accelerate vaccine development in the context of COVID. Artificial intelligence to find markers or biomarkers that will predict outcomes. So we have several papers that came up from TB groups that use that knowledge in the context of COVID to advance the field. Immunology, the TB immunologists published several seminal articles in the context of COVID describing details of the dynamics of these immune responses in both systemically, but also in the lungs of COVID patients. So the TB community was ready and helped a lot to develop the current knowledge that we have about COVID. So I think, so the impact of COVID in TB was dramatic. We stopped it or affected directly our capacity to study our patients, for sure, and to provide better care and to evolve with this care in many countries. But at the same time, this stressful situation caused the TB community, research community, to actually help improving diagnosis. So we have diagnostic platforms that are based on GeneXpert that came from TB. So we have a number of other point of care assays that were developed using the background knowledge that was that came from TB field. So so the scenario caused, so the huge advance that we had and very quick advance in COVID in trying to understand pathogenesis, clinical determinants, treatment candidates, trying to predict outcomes and trying to come up with better strategies to treat and to come up with a vaccine. All of this has a tremendous contributions from TB field. And we are very proud that we could contribute that to the pandemic, right? To control the pandemic.
Yeah, that's really great. You had already developed all these tools over so much time working on TB, you could quickly target those to COVID. So how has COVID impacted the focus of your own research then?
So the impact in my, I continue to develop my TB research using the data repositories and the biorepositories that we had with specimens from patients, but the attention was split with COVID responsibilities. And I think that at least all the friends that I know in the field, they suffered the same thing. So we had to dedicate a lot of effort trying to do inactivities in counter measures with COVID. So we established diagnostic centers here. We have several platforms that we build around the country to help diagnosing faster, and healthcare professionals, but also patients in less privileged, like healthcare institutions, for example. So that's what we pretty much have been doing since COVID has hammered the country with cases.
How has COVID then impacted the research community in Brazil? How has the field either come together or utilized resources to attack this new combined threat?
It's nothing new that Brazil has suffered a lot with COVID, and that affected directly research, not only the activities but the budget, right? So how to work in a really stressed environment where money is not that much available. So I've seen, and I had the opportunity to observe and to participate in this new way to work in the middle of a pandemic, Shannon. That was actually, I think, several groups with different interests and sometimes competing groups. They had to work together to get things done, and I think this was somehow very beautiful and interesting thing to observe. So in a country that was suffering with the pandemic, and is still suffering, and with the economic crisis that everybody is aware of, the research groups found a way to advance the knowledge and develop kits and to run clinical trials from vaccines and to describe several novel aspects of COVID in the middle of this huge crisis, because the groups came together. So we have networks that were built in the middle of the pandemics with researchers from different expertise or different areas to work together with that. So I think that was quite a unique experience to be that happened in Brazil in the context of COVID. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really encouraging that it did kind of force people's hands to work collaboratively rather than against each other. Do you think that will continue in the future?
I hope so. In my institution, this was a really dramatic shift in reality. So the groups are working more together in platforms and in multi groups initiatives that we call consortiums, and many consortiums were created. So I think this was a good thing that the scientists found a way to actually work during the pandemic.
Yeah. Well, we're excited to hear about it at the meeting and about all these new approaches. Can you also tell us a bit about your new role as the chief editor for the Frontiers in Tropical Diseases journal, and what your responsibilities are and what you envision for this new journal?
So this is a really exciting journal that is about to be released now, and my role is I'm a chief editor of a section within this journal that is called Major Tropical Diseases, and I'm very comfortable leading this part this section because I work with malaria, leishmaniasis, TB. So this journal is trying to come up with something different. So aside from helping them to design the scope and the priorities of the journals and the research lines that we want to promote and the editorial board that we want to build, so we were able to actually give a kind of a keystone twist, Shannon. So it's not only most of these tropical disease journals, they end up having a lot a lot of research on clinical determinants or epidemiological determinants of diseases and economical determinants of diseases. This journal wants to do something different, which is the same view that I started the interview talking about, like the integrative. So we want to integrate omics with social determinants, with clinical determinants, and trying to give this more integrated view of the diseases. So I think that's the differential of the journal, and it's really, and I think I'm very excited with the editorial board, and I think we will have a good experience. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, because I know there have been many tropical disease journals around, and so you found a new niche to fill and a new niche that is needed to move the field forward. It's exciting. For those looking to publish their work, what is the journal looking to highlight in future issues, either in the short term or more long-term scope?
Yeah, so we are really looking for studies that bring this, that describe the disease in a different layer of complexity. We want to see integration of multiple platforms. We want to see multidisciplinary action, and that's what we're looking for. We want to see epidemiologists with immunologists, with decision-making actors or players to come up with single and united views of the diseases, and that's what the journal is really determined to be defined as a platform that will promote this kind of view about the tropical diseases. Yeah.
Great. Well, we very much look forward to seeing what you guys have to publish. Anything else you'd like our audience to know about the meeting, the field, or the journal?
So we are very excited to participate in this keystone and exchange ideas. I think the multidisciplinary nature of the meeting, it will be a high point. It will be a very important point of this meeting, and that will follow the journal's scope. So I think these two initiatives together, it's a win-win, and we hope to see many people there and like huge participation. And yeah, it's just I think it's a really important moment for the community, especially the TB community, to get together in a meeting that will be discussed. In the COVID will be discussed, implications of that. We have representatives from the WHO, from governments, and from academia. So I think it's an amazing forum to foster development of the field.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think we always at our meetings do try to bring these different perspectives together to make advances that otherwise wouldn't be seen or accomplished. So we very much look forward to hearing more. And thank you so much for your time today and sharing with us these very exciting new insights into the meeting and the field. And we look forward to seeing you in December.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Great.